Hello, hello. What a day. It is a nice day outside here in Chicago. It's cold, but it's nice. So I hopped online today because I miss teaching. So we're starting a new thing. This is virtual TRU School with Brian Boncher here in the TRU Music studio, otherwise known as a small bedroom in my house. I wanted to hop online today just to really not necessarily teach, but show you what Alex and I do after we record those live streams. And we appreciate everyone that tunes in to the TrueCast on Tuesday nights on all of our channels. At the end of the TrueCast, we actually end up with a video recording of the whole night. And we use Ecamm is the software for the broadcast, but it also records in the background. And we end up with a movie file with high quality audio. So I don't know how everyone else does it, but this is how we turn our live streams into podcast or other files for radio broadcast. I used to teach this in my classes years ago, my DJ classes, and podcasts have, they're really the same thing, but they have a lot of reach and a lot of capabilities with all the platforms now, such as Apple Podcast and Spotify Podcast. And really, all a podcast is your music file hosted somewhere else on a server that other music sources can grab that link from and display it to people. And how you get placement, that's charts and other things. But today, I'm just going to take you behind the scenes to technically what we actually do to our recording to turn it into the TrueCast that you see on Mixcloud and everything else. So first and foremost, Alex has said it many times, we're all about playlist. So it's exporting your playlist. That's going to be the first thing that we do. Most of the tracks that we play are off of Stick, using Rekordbox to sort. This is the free Rekordbox. The paid one is just more for performance. This is just straight up the free Rekordbox that we use to import our playlist from iTunes and add them to the stick. When we're done playing, as long as we properly eject the thumb drive from the CDJ, you should be able to plug it back into the same computer that your Rekordbox library is on, and a little dialog box usually pops up and runs real quick and says importing history. Your history should then end up down below in your left hand, this little window here where you got your collection playlist and all these different items. Down at the bottom, you have histories. And as long as you haven't reinstalled or wiped your Rekordbox out, you should have all your histories in here. So this is from our last night's TrueCast. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to export this for two reasons. I'm going to export a .m3u8 file, which is going to allow me to bring this playlist back into my iTunes. This is really cool. So I'm just going to rename this TrueCast 107. Throw it right on the desktop. I'm going to right click again. I'm going to export it as a text file. TrueCast 107. Desktop. I could save it with the same name because the extension is different on the back end. Let's get rid of Rekordbox. Now I'm going to open up my iTunes. So the first thing I'm going to do, this just helps us so we don't replay songs that we've already played. I mean, there's nothing against it. Sometimes we'll play records twice, but we try to mix it up. So what I like to do is go into my Apple Music, and I am using Apple Music now. I should no longer call it iTunes. It's Apple Music. But I go to Import, and then I select that M3U, and I hit Open. Now in the bottom of my screen, the bottom of my playlists, I have my TrueCast playlist that imports back into iTunes. The reason it can do this is because it's all playing from the same file. So as long as the link to the original audio file, and that audio file is in the same place, if everything connects, this will import back in, and I should be able to. Booty shaking me. So those are all the records I played last night. Now what I do with this playlist, this is really cool. I go back into the playlist that I played from. So, I go back into the playlist that I played from. So here the last record is My Nature, right? And I'm going to change this view just to make it easier. So My Nature is number 11. So if I go into the folders that I played and highlight everything, it'll say there are duplicates being added to the playlist. I'm going to say skip the duplicates. Obviously, I don't want to add duplicates. Everything I didn't play is now right there. So when I go back to this folder, I delete everything out of TRUcast New, go back to 107, select everything that was under the last record I played, and drag it back into TRUcast New. Now I emptied out the stuff I already played out of that folder. Now I might have played a few cuts out of this folder as well. So I'll go back to this playlist, delete everything out of it, go to this folder as well. This is just another folder with recurrents, I call it, or older tracks from the playlist, or my iTunes that I might want to play in the TRUcast. Go here, skip, delete everything out of there, then go back to here, and everything under 11 was not played yet, and then remove them. Then I'll take this playlist and drag it into my podcast playlist, and then you see I keep all my different TRUcast playlists. It's dope to keep that on file here. Going through all my screens right now, I really can't see comments coming through at this moment, so I'll stick around for a few minutes after I go through all this and answer any questions that you might have. I'll bring up my chat window and we'll answer some questions, but I just want to get through this little TRU Skool back-end tutorial first. So that's basically keeping up to date with my playlist, making sure I don't repeat things, so on and so forth. Great. Now that's done. That's just me personally. Now the next phase of this is actually making the playlist. So how I'm going to do that, I'm going to take the text file that's on the desktop. I'm going to drag it. You could drag it into Excel or you can drag it into Apple Numbers. It doesn't matter. Just a spreadsheet program should be able to bring this up. Now, if I jump into Excel, you can see it should be like a comma delimited format, so it'll already break it up into columns. Now, we don't need all this other information, key, date, all that stuff. So right away, I just swoop down, highlight these columns, get rid of them. I don't need them. Now all I'm looking at is track and artist, right? Now I want to flip these two because we typically put artist first. So I'm just going to cut this out of here. Insert cut cells, and it basically flips them back and forth, right? And then I can edit ones that are messed up. Now we take this and we do all our editing in just a simple Apple text file. This is the best way to do it. And you want to make sure you match the style of plain text. That way it's easier to paste into your websites. See, now I'm just going to edit out any spaces or weird things that are in the setup here. Now, at some point, Alex and I were actually talking last night. We'd actually like to start incorporating record labels with it. But when you see how much actually goes into all the back-end production of this, you can see how it's time-consuming. So at some point, we're going to try and start incorporating that. But we're only a two-man operation when it comes to this. So this is my playlist. So I'm just going to put a little BB in front of it because this is not going to be the final playlist because Alex still has his playlist somewhere in here. Make a new folder. TrueCast 107, and I'm just going to call this TrueCast 107 playlists. And hit save. And I know Alex had to work today, so he probably won't have his playlist up. So we'll skip his part of it. But it's basically just combining what I just did with his playlist. Along with if I play vinyl, I always keep some vinyl. Everything I play, I try to put aside so I remember what I played. And then I'll add these in. Sometimes I got to look back at the video to see exactly when I played it or whatever, but I'll just add those into the playlist. But I'll finish this whole presentation with just the little playlist we have. So we have the playlist. Now it's time to get to the audio, and let's get the audio. You don't need to save the Excel file. You're just using Excel as an in-between to get the text in the right format that you want. All right, now to the audio. So when it comes to the audio, it's a video. I just use Premiere for everything. It's super easy, okay? I'm going to open up just a brand new sequence, or actually a new project. Just name it the TrueCast 107. You know, the key to staying organized is when you come up with a naming format, just stick to it, and it's easier to go in your folders and keep everything going. That I'm using, excuse me. I'm using an external hard drive to do all my video editing as well because it is a lot of data. Where am I at here? Here it is. True Music of Video Archive, TrueCast. Once again, new folder. So I got that. Now Ecamm. Should have a nice, fresh recording for me with no frame drops. It has nothing to do with how your live feed performs on the other end. This is strictly a recording on your laptop. Just waiting for this guy to... What happened here? TrueCast 107. Yes. Let's do a new sequence. All right. Go in my documents, my Ecamm live recordings, and here is the TrueCast. So what I want to do before I even start editing it, though, is I want to make sure I get it into that new folder that I created. For the TrueCast, because that's important. I want to make sure I'm editing my video on the back end here, not on the front end. Not on my system drive, that is. Let's see. Where am I at? TrueCast. Oops. 107. So I'm going to drag that movie in there. I'm going to delete it off my system drive. That'll save space, because you can see it's almost 6 gigs. That was a 2-hour 1080p live stream last night. Let's get rid of those. There it is. Double check it. Yep, that's our TrueCast. Now when I drag it out of the new folder into Premiere, it'll be using my external solid state to do the editing and build the cache if you do any transitions and stuff like that. But we're not even doing anything complicated here. All we're simply doing is going to export the audio out of here. So this is the TrueCast recording playing in Premiere. First thing we like to do is cut off the front. We're waiting for people to tune in, so we have a bunch of dead space at the beginning where we're filtering in beats. That's kind of our signature starting point, right? So let's forward in. Here we go. And it doesn't need to be right on beat. We're just basically trying to find a downbeat that we want to start after our intro. That'll be perfect right there. So I chop off the front dead space, just move it to the left. The next thing I do is bring in our sweepers that Alex created. By the way, Alex does intros, voiceovers, and DJ drops. He does it for all of our work, obviously. So within our Dropbox that Alex and I have, we have a TrueCast folder that has all of our audio sweeps. So I'm going to go down and use our intro. So I just drag it into the audio track in Premiere. Now, I'm sure you could do this editing in any video software of your choice, but you're seeing right now firsthand how easy this is going to be. Shift it up.
Is the TrueCast.
So that's our TrueCast intro.
You make me feel so
Here we go. This is the TrueCast. Live.
And we love to start it on the live, so I'm just going to try and nudge it up.
Live.
Whoops. Scoot it up just a little bit more.
Live. Live. Live.
Take that other kick out.
Live. Live.
There we go. That's good. Put a little fade in on it.
Live.
Yeah, welcome back, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Thank you to Texas. Thank you to San Antonio and McAllen. All the clubs I rocked at this week. To see you again.
Now my volume level's already compressed. We use a mastering chain in real time. That's kind of one of our secrets to our TrueCast sounding a little bit bigger and thicker over the internet. So I don't necessarily need to. If I wanted to, I could limit it more and add a limiter up here, but it's just not necessary. I mean, these end up streaming at like 128K. Now, Alex and I, our mixes are live. So when we're done recording, we don't really do any editing. The only thing I do is come to the outro here, figure out where we ended.
We don't know. I've never seen him before. Don't know him, but I clicked on some rap. I'll let you.
And I think I'll chop there. We don't need all the outro because usually when we're live, we're trying to hook up Twitch followers and raid. You guys know all about that on Twitch. So I don't need all that stuff in my radio broadcast because we're going to give this mix to other radio stations and stuff like that. They don't, I mean, all that stuff they'd have to end up cutting out anyways. So I like having the choice of what we cut out of the mix. Put a fade on it. And then, of course, throw in our outro sweep here, the TrueCast outro. Zoom in, just make sure it doesn't sound too ridiculous.
Thank you for listening to the TrueCast. Stay connected.
And I'll pull out my audio fade a little more, give it a nice...
Thank you.
That's what I like. Professional. All right. Now all I'm doing is setting my in and out markers. That's just an Adobe thing. That basically says when I export it, it's going to export that amount. Now you're going to see how fast this happens. This is a 2-hour live stream. All I do is export it as an MP3. So when I export media from Premiere, you have all these crazy video formats. I mean, I can't even explain them. To be honest, this is all learned just on my own YouTube videos going crazy when it comes to video. So I've had no guidance in this. So please, this is not an Adobe Premiere lesson. This is just what I use to get our podcast out. I select MP3 and then I just go with 256. You can argue 320, all that stuff. Guys, we're playing this on our phones. We're playing this in the car. It's good enough. Trust me. I used to use a Walkman to listen to DJ mixes. Imagine how shitty that sounded. So you don't need to have like WAV files and all that kind of stuff. Unless a station or someone in particular requested, that's fine. I can change my format to WAV. But honestly, this is the way to roll. MP3 256. I rename it, but I'm going to go right into my TrueCast folder that we have already set up with the playlist in there. TrueCast 107, Alex Peace. Oh, spell his name right. Alex Peace. And Brian Boncher. Save. Export. So in a matter of, well, it's probably taking a little longer to export because I'm actually live right now streaming. Usually it takes 1:30 seconds. So my computer's probably allocating some resources. But while that's bouncing, now we do the artwork. Now our artwork for the TrueCast is fairly simple. That's one thing. It's okay to take lessons from other major labels and things like that. When it comes to something you're going to be producing on a regular basis, it's smart to really come up with something that's probably a cleaner look. And Alex and I got to the point, like Apple and every other company, I mean, this just makes it very easy to edit. So this is Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop, and we have this template file set up. And usually it is Alex and I, so we only have a few layers set up for different types of naming structures, but it's all the same formula. So I'm changing the number. Then instead of one name, I'm just putting both names. And since we were the last ones to do a podcast together, it's already set up. I'm going to save it as a big file. So iTunes has particular specs for the size of your podcast episodes artwork. So does Spotify. And I think the last that I saw last year, it was 2400 by 2400. So that's what I'm going to bounce it out at for this image. And then I'm also going to bounce out a 600 by 600. And that one is for our website. That way we're not eating up bandwidth when people go to our website to look at our TrueCast archive. And again, back to naming, I can't stress enough how important naming is. And staying organized. Like even me, I'm looking at it right now, trying to look at it twice. So that covers the artwork. I'm going to exit Photoshop, give my computer a breather. Let's see how much time we have. Well, I usually don't like making people sit around like that. So what we're going to do is this. Let me bring up my Restream chat here. All right, with that open, I got my Restream chat open. Anyone that is tuned in right now, does anyone have any questions about what I've done so far with editing and pulling out what I'm doing in the podcast, why I'm doing it, what I'm actually creating? I do have to wait for it to bounce out. I can't show you where we upload it until I actually have a file to upload. So, I mean, at some point, maybe I'll hop back on and show the rest of that. But that is exactly how we edit and add our intros, outros to the TRUcast and export it as an MP3 ready to upload. So I don't see any messages coming through, so if you guys don't have any questions, that was really what I was trying to show today, was just how we convert that podcast. It looks like we only got 1 minute left, 59 seconds. Woo! And I dig these live TRU Skool sessions. I mean, there's no formality here, by the way. You know, I might have to take a break and take a sip of water. Just like a real classroom, but I appreciate you guys sitting in with me. And hopefully this video or this recording will help people in the future here. So let's see where we're at with everything. %. It's like the story of our lives, waiting for software to bounce. How many people love waiting for their software to bounce? Just madness, just madness. Let's quit Excel, quit TextEdit, quit some of these programs. Let the computer breathe, quit Recordbox. All right, we're all exported. Now I'm going to save this Premiere file because I might go back in and chop some little sections out and convert it to IGTV for Alex to use for posts later on in the week. But we'll cover that in another session. So let me get out of here. Let's free up some space. All right, now that we have that MP3, we have to edit it. And I'm going to use a software called Tag Editor. It's just a nice, easy, cheap software to edit MP3s without me having to open iTunes, because that is a pain in the butt. So I drag the MP3 that was just created, add the artwork, the title is really the same as the file name. The artist, we just make TRUcast because it's kind of a various artist thing. It's a podcast. Album TRUcast. We just put house. We don't get too detailed with what kind it is and all that. Comment TRUmusica.com. And then I hit save. And that will update the metadata for that MP3. So now when I play it back, there's my MP3. And from there, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Mixcloud and upload it. There it is, guys. That's how the podcast goes to Mixcloud. And then for the Apple podcast and Spotify podcast, they actually require you to send your RSS feed in. Now, there's third-party companies that will host your mixes for you. Mixcloud being one of them, but Mixcloud isn't like an RSS feed. But there's other software, or there's other companies that do that for you, like Podomatic. I'm sure there's a bunch more out there. We actually host our own podcast on TRUmusica.com. Same type of scenario on the back end. We just have our own web address for it. And this program Feeder is a Mac program that lets me communicate with our TRUmusica.com server to upload our files. But that's all you're really doing is taking the same MP3 I drag it in here, and the only difference is I can add more information. I can add a playlist. So we haven't finished the playlist yet, so I'm just going to type playlist coming soon. And I can always update that later on the file. It's not a big deal. Episode artwork. This is, again, where I'm going to upload the bigger image. I hit save. Save. I've never done a playlist coming soon, but I didn't realize Alex didn't have his playlist up there yet. But you can see we'll get it up there in a few hours here once he's off work. And then I hit publish. And that's updating what's called an XML file that's stored on our server. That's what Apple Music, Apple Podcast, and Spotify and other podcasting services read. That's the link to the file they read that gives the customer, the person that has podcasting on their phone, access to download it right away when it's available. It's like a subscription, basically. You're subscribing, and that feed is information that lets your smart device know that, hey, these guys have a new episode. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a talk episode, whether it's music, anything that's a podcast is a podcast. And once I hit publish, that's what it's doing. It's uploading the MP3, it's updating that XML file, and it's adding the full image for the artwork. Certain sites use it, certain sites don't. Keep in mind that different, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, they take the information that's in that XML file and they just display it a little bit differently on each site, because that's what it is. It's a table of data with information, and then the client that uses that information decides how they want to display it in their color scheme, with their fonts, with their layout. And that's where you get the specs of, I need the picture this size, I need it in this format. This software feeder for Mac already does all the details of creating all those specs that's needed for it to communicate with all the major platforms. That's why it's just easy to use it. Feeders of subscription, I don't remember exactly how much. I want to say it was like $20 for the year or something. So just like most little pieces of software now and plugins, everything is subscription based. But that's going to run its course, and as soon as it's done uploading here, when my status bar is finished, then anyone that has a subscription to the TrueCast through Apple Podcasts, if their notification's on, they'll get a notification that it's available. If they just simply go into their podcast, they'll see it pop up as a new episode. And that is how we upload our TrueCast. That's it for today. I hope this was helpful for some of you guys that were tuned in today, and feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and we'll be back again with some more True School for you. Have a great rest of the day. Brian Boncher with True Musica. I'm out.